Slay the Spire is the deck-building roguelike that popularized the genre, and was developed by Megacrit. It debuted on Steam in early access in November 2017. Just over a year later, in January 2019, the game was fully released. From the beginning, it was clear that Slay the Spire was something special, and the community quickly rallied behind the developers. Its early success can be attributed to the dedication of the developers and the community. During the initial playtesting and the early stages of development, community members even created art to replace placeholder text for the cards. This level of dedication to the game hasn't subsided 5 years later, with many mods expanding the original roster of characters, cards, and relics. If you've ever played Slay the Spire, it is pretty obvious why the community is so dedicated. The game design is incredible and addicting. It is easy to say that Slay the Spire kickstarted the deck-building roguelike genre, and a lot of their influences were derived from Dominion, the deck-building game that started it all back in 2008. Dominion is one of those games that really hit home for me personally, so it is easy to see why they drew so much inspiration from it. I can remember spending countless nights huddled around piles of cards on the floor with my friends in high school and playing for hours on end. I was never very good at the game, but I still enjoyed it quite a lot, and that is mirrored with Slay the Spire as well, a true testament to their ability to hook the player regardless of skill level. We can't talk about influences without mentioning Dream Quest, one of the first games developed in the genre that Slay the Spire became the titan of. Its developer, Peter Whalen, was scooped up by the Hearthstone team at Blizzard soon after its release due to its innovative and fun game design. There's clearly a lot of inspiration that was drawn from Dream Quest. However, the parts that Megacrit did use from the Dream Quest formula, they polished and expanded on until we have the game that we all know and love today. There are some people that will say that Slay the Spire is just a clone of Dream Quest, but in my opinion, when looking at the two games, that couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, there are similarities between the two, but saying it's a clone is like saying Celeste is a clone of Super Mario Bros. It simply isn't true. Visually, Slay the Spire is quirky, but distinct. It has a fantastic style, and it really leans into it from Niao to the Awakened One. The design is consistent and interesting. Everything about the visual design perfectly complements the overall vibe of the game. The UI, the enemies, the subtle animations from attacks, or sometimes not so subtle attacks. I think this is something that a lot of games strive to achieve, but few rarely ever do. Slay the Spire is instantly recognizable, and I think that is largely due to the distinction of its visual style, and it is one of the many things that I love about the game. It never gets old running into Gremlin Knob's ugly mug or hearing the caw before running into these freaking bird nerds. It is always a blast, and I get a kick out of it every time I boot up the game. If we are talking about design, it is important to also mention sound design. The music is absolutely fantastic, and frankly, at this point, it's pretty iconic. I absolutely love the different themes for the acts, and I feel like it perfectly matches the intensity of the game as you approach the different acts and start facing greater challenges until it inevitably crescendos at the end of Act 3. And honestly, I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. It's also worth mentioning the sound effects for the different cards are really satisfying as well. From the slashing sound of an attack, the sound of picking a card, or the clank of defending. It is all really great and incredibly well done. I'm sure you're all aware of how Slay the Spire works, but a quick overview will help facilitate a broader conversation about what makes its game design so genius and addicting. You select a character and ascend through floors that are randomly plotted at the beginning of each act. Each run begins with a character-specific starter deck, and each path on the map leads to different encounters, including hallway fights, elite fights, rest sites, random events, and shops until you ascend to the boss at the end of the act. You repeat this process until you either die or defeat the Act 3 boss. Then you restart and do it all over again. The mechanics and UI are also very easy to follow and learn, especially if you've ever played a card game before. You have a limited amount of energy and can spend that energy to use the cards in your hand. Those cards can do a variety of things, from attack and defend to more complicated mechanics that the game gradually exposes you to by requiring you to play the classes a certain amount before unlocking the next class. You start with the Ironclad, who likes to hit things really hard. You'll unlock the Silent next, where you'll be drawing and discarding quite a lot. Then you'll unlock the Defect, who will cause your head to literally explode, trying to figure out how to optimize his orbs properly. and eventually you'll move on to the Watcher, who will have you weaving in and out of stances and playing cards that can instantly kill you if played incorrectly. This is clearly a generalization of each of the characters, and they all have many different ways that you could build and play them, with each having 75 different cards at their disposal. The UI provides you with all of the information you require without opening up any menus, aside from your draw and discard pile, and this design alone is something that every game should strive for. You can see everything that you have at a glance: buffs, relics, number of cards in the draw pile, number of cards discarded, health, even the enemy's intentions, which is an important part of the strategy. Despite Slay the Spire's deceptively easy early fundamental concepts, there is a lot of strategic depth to the game. Understanding when to defend or attack and when to utilize certain cards is paramount to your success and becomes increasingly more difficult. As you get deeper into the game, you'll need to learn the patterns of different enemies so that you can appropriately strategize and claim victory. Slay the Spire is a game about minimizing attrition. With limited healing options, each decision has a snowball effect that might not be immediately apparent. This is part of the genius. You rarely lose a fight and feel cheated. While RNG exists and bad luck can lead to your demise, it's rarely the case. As you construct your deck, you're attempting to solve problems and find ways to minimize health loss in encounters. This can be challenging, with a steep learning curve as you delve into the difficulty modifiers known as ascension levels. These levels go up to 20, each adding a layer of difficulty that compounds onto the others. Game design that is easy to learn but difficult to master without artificial difficulty is incredibly hard, and few games are able to do it as well as Megacrit have done it with Slay the Spire. The more I play the game, the fewer flaws I actually think that it has. The different characters' playstyles are incredibly varied, and the different mechanics that they utilize makes each one interesting to learn. There is so much replayability with this game because no two runs are going to be the same. Sure, you can get runs that are similar in build construction, but you're unlikely to see the exact same setup twice, which makes it a lot of fun and really gets you into that one more run mentality. The best part about Slay the Spire, though, is definitely the combat. Each encounter is a puzzle, and it's your job to solve it with the hand you're dealt while taking as little damage as possible. Each time you dive into a run, you have to construct and figure out how to pilot a new deck and make the most out of the cards that the game presents you. Sometimes that is going to be easy. Other times it is going to be very difficult, but it's always fun. The different enemies in each of the acts have nuanced attacks and mechanics that you have to learn and then strategize ways that you're going to deal with those mechanics, lest you run into the Book of Stabbing in Act 2 and just die, like I do, every time. I'm mostly joking. It doesn't kill me every time, but if you've been on the stream while I play, you know the Book of Stabbing is my arch nemesis and kills me pretty frequently. That points to a flaw in the way I tend to build my decks though, because the Book of Stabbing is very beatable. You just need to prioritize finding answers to overcome those obstacles. Constructing a good deck isn't too hard, but once you discover some of the stronger combos with the different relics and cards, you'll understand the brilliance of the game design. The developers have left some of the strongest combinations in the game because it's simply fun, and too often nowadays developers feel as though they have to remove the fun from their games for the sake of balance, and in most cases, that's just not true. The first time you get a Dead Branch and Exhaust build on Ironclad, you will undoubtedly laugh maniacally as you absolutely obliterate the entire game. I know I did. There are plenty of instances of this in the game, but they aren't so common that it trivializes the process of creating a deck, and as you get deeper into the Ascensions, crafting a good and consistent deck becomes more and more important. I absolutely love this game, and I have a hard time saying anything negative about it. If I had to nitpick something, I'd say that I'm not a huge fan of the random starting bonuses being based on whether or not you made it out of Act 1 in your previous run. Having the game actively punish you for doing poorly on your last run feels a little bit anti-fun, and I think that is something that they should consider changing with Slay the Spire 2. All of this to say, Slay the Spire is still the best deck building roguelike on the market, bar none. The love and care that went into crafting the different characters and each of their mechanics is beyond exceptional, and most developers in the deck building space are simply chasing after the perfection that Slay the Spire managed to bring together after many years of hard work and dedication. Slay the Spire 2 is just over the horizon, and will be here before we know it. I think there is a huge opportunity for the developers to expand on an incredible foundation and make it even better. That being said, there's always the risk that they will miss the mark, and I think that they have some really big shoes to fill, but we will just have to wait and see what happens. If you want to check out the live stream, you can find the schedule down below, or you can click here to watch a past live stream. If you're looking for another turn-based roguelike, check out my review for Inkbound here, and a special shout out to the members of the channel. You guys are awesome. As always, I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.